So how did the business get started?
So in 1940, the business was 2 doors down, and my grandfather, Sam Wineburg, started an Army-Navy store with a gentleman called Harold Lubin. They started the first Harold's Army-Navy that became a chain years later, where Woodman's Pub now is. At some point during the early stages, they opened a boys store next door where now is the pizza shop. What happened was they started the business. My grandfather was married with 2 young children, but he was a sick man. He had a bad heart. The war came and Harold got drafted. My grandfather, of course, didn't because of his health and also because he had a family. Harold went off to World War II. My grandfather stayed and ran the business for them while he was away. When Harold came back, they opened a second store in Elmira. But back in the late 40s, early 50s, we weren't modern roads, and it took quite a long time to get back and forth on dirt roads from Elmira to Cortland. So at that point, they decided that since my grandfather was married with kids and owned a home here, and Harold was single and didn't, Harold would take the Elmira store, and my grandfather would keep the Cortland store, and they would split up the partnership at that point. Shortly after that, right around 1953, my grandfather was in New York on a buying trip for the store, and he was running to catch a plane at JFK, which at the time was Idlewild Airport, and dropped dead on the runway of a heart attack.
Oh.
And left my grandmother with 2 small children and a business to run. My grandmother took over the business, kept it open, closed the boy store because it was too much for her to handle both, and ran the Army-Navy store for years after. At the time, it was not very easy for her. At that time of the world, it was not, it was odd that there was a woman-owned and run business. At the beginning, the salesman took advantage of her, the customers took advantage of her, and she was kind of, had some tough years, but she made it work. In the late 60s, my father, when he was in high school, would come to work every day after school. He wasn't permitted to do after-school activities. His job was to come to work and help out with the family business. And he did that. Upon graduating high school, my father always hated the Army-Navy business. He wanted to be in the men's clothing business. So somehow, and it's still amazing to us how he convinced my grandmother of anything, because she was a very, very tough woman, convinced her to move to the corner where we currently are, in the corner of Main and Port Watson, and convert from the Army-Navy into a better men's clothing store, which they did. And he came into the business and ran as a men's clothing store with her. A few years later, my father met my mother. They got married. My mother moved to Cortland from Brooklyn and did not work in the family business at that point. She worked in the public sector. So my father ran the men's clothing store. Then they opened the basement up, refinished the basement, and put a young men's and boys store downstairs, and carried jeans and boys wearing some dress clothes for young men, so on and so forth. At some point around 1980, my grandmother decided to retire, and that's when my mother came into the business to help pay my grandmother off. They needed the help, but they didn't have a lot of money at that time because they had to pay her. So my grandmother retired, and my mother came into the business and started working the store, and that's right around the time they started with the tuxedo rentals, which to this day my mother still does all the tuxedo rentals. And then through time there's been changes. We opened a second store in Ithaca for 4 years. In 1994 till 1998, when I came into the business, I ran that. I started working in the business when I was 10 years old, part-time, here or there, school breaks, summers. But after college is what I wanted to do. So I came in, we opened a second store in Ithaca. Had some good years, had some bad years, but overall it wasn't the best move for us. So I came back here and we transitioned into a few other things. We had a golf shop for a few years, which did well, but then the golf market declined, so we jumped ship from that. And right around 1998, around the same time I came back, it was a fluke. I started doing some custom logo work for a customer. And it just grew and grew and grew, and through time, that business kept growing and the men's clothing business kept shrinking. Unfortunately, the way that the world has become, men are dressing less and less. How I'm dressed now is actually considered fairly dressed up. So about 6 years ago, I realized it was time to get out of the men's clothing business completely, and we moved forward with the custom logo business. Shortly after that, we bought Victory Promotions and Trophy, which was a competitor down the street, and we ended up in the trophy business. Last year, 2 years ago, we bought Logo This, so we ended up in the Greek paddle business too, which all relates back to anything you can put a logo on, we do. And that's pretty much where we're at.
It's really fascinating. It really is so interesting. You know so much about the history of your business. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask is what do you think was the most dramatic or largest change in Cortland in the last 60 years? Maybe with the idea of what businesses around you have changed and gone out of business.
I would say losing the majority of our major industry was the biggest thing that hurt Cortland. At one point, and don't quote me on the history on this, but we were one of the wealthier cities in the state of New York at one point in time, and now we're one of the poorest cities, and it actually sickens me that it's become this. I really have felt that our state needs to make better deals to get industry here, but I really do feel that our county needs to make better deals to get industry here. I've always been a proponent of some money's better than no money, and sometimes you have to make deals to get something. I mean, we do it, a lot of times we'll pick up an account far, far away that we really have to lowball, but I said, you know what, something's better than not getting it at all. And, I really feel that that's something that our county really needs to consider is make deals with people, get them here. You make deals with taxes, with property tax, and you'll make it back on, utility tax, you'll make it back on payroll taxes, people spending money. We need industry to make this county work.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
It just strikes me as you speak that your business, 3 generations, and you were resilient enough to make modifications over time so that you could survive. And I wonder, hearing you speak about what the county should do, have you ever thought about doing anything political, like running for office?
I have.
Have you?
I have. I'm on a board right now that consumes a lot of my time, and once I finish with that for another year, I might make some. I'm up in the air on it. I really am. I've talked about it. I've tossed it around quite a bit. I've run political campaigns. I just have never been in the forefront of one myself, and it's something that I have. 3 young children. I have 10-and-a-half-year-old twin daughters, and I have a 4-year-old daughter. And something's got to give a little bit. So I can't do everything at once, but there's some thought about it.
Well, good, because I think your perspective has a lot of value.
Thank you.
And you articulate it well, and I imagine people would listen to you when you spoke.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Robert.
Oh no, fine. On the other side of the coin, about what do you appreciate the most about Cortland and the Cortland area?
I think it's a great place to raise a family.
Yeah.
I really do. Not quite as good as when I was a child. I think there's a lot of problems that need to be dealt with. There's a lot of drug issues and poverty in Cortland. I do strongly believe that if you raise your children with good values and raise them properly, you're going to be okay. Good friends. My children are involved in a lot of activities. We keep them busy. Pretty much we have an activity 7 days a week now. But I do feel that it is a great place to raise a family. I mean, my mother used to say, and she came from Brooklyn, she used to say that she'd call her friends. They said, "What's it like up there?" And they said, "Well, in Brooklyn, how there's things to do all night long, but you're afraid to go out." She said, "Here you can go out all night long, but there's not a lot to do." But she used to tell her friends that you could, leave your house can only unlock and go for a bike ride. I don't know if I would still do that,
Yeah.
but I do feel safer. I feel like people watch out for each other for the most part. I know our neighborhood, we have 40 kids in our neighborhood, and everybody's watching out for each other's kids, which is nice.
It is very nice. Somebody for your kids to run around with in the neighborhood.
It is.
It's just, yeah.
It is. And they've got good friends, we've got good friends, so it makes a difference.
Oh, that's great. So what's your favorite memory here? Do you have anything that's favorite? Sticks out, negative or positive, but hopefully positive. Would you like to share?
Trying to think, one of my favorite memory is of Cortland.
Or one of them, maybe.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I grew up, so being that my parents worked all summer, when I got to the point where I was probably 12, 13 years old, they kept a bike for me at the store. So I was probably driving age, so 3 or 4 years they kept the bike in me for the store. And I grew up in Homer, so it's not like I could just stay at home and, so that they would keep a bike here. And my best friend, who also is from Homer's grandparents, lived in Cortland on Pendleton Street. And his mother worked, so he would spend the summer there. And my parents would get to work at 9 in the morning, and I would get my bike out of the back room, and I would leave and pretty much be gone. And we would ride bikes around town and, get a little childish mischief and nothing really bad. But go to the parks, all the parks had different activities going on through the youth bureau. And we would just do things all summer long. Every day there was something to do. Of course, I did some camps too here and there. But overall, it was a great memory. It was a great, childhood.
Yeah, it is a lovely memory that not everybody has, so it's really,
Right.
really a blessing. And then the last one that I would have actually would be, what were your favorite place in Cortland?
My backyard, probably. My favorite place in Cortland. That's a good question.
Or one of them.
Yeah.
I would say probably downtown. I mean, it needs work. There's no doubt about it. It's something I was talking with one of our aldermen yesterday. But I like downtown. I like it more when there's a lot of activity going on downtown. Days like the Brockway Truck Show, it's probably my favorite day of the summer in Cortland, just because it's so community involved. There's just, people are here, they're raving, everybody's got something nice to say, and I do like downtown Cortland. I mean, I'm vested there. My business is more or less gotten to the point where I could probably go anywhere. I don't have to be downtown, but I like being downtown.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? Because you've got tons of things, I can tell.
Well, maybe something about the history of the building. And
Sure.
talking about the history.
So the building was built right around 1830. It was one story shorter than it is now. Around 1880, 1890, they put another story on the building, which is good and bad. They expanded, their input and how many tenants they could put in there. The problem is they really didn't support the center of the building the way they should have when they did it, and that's something I'm dealing with now. But the building's got great history. We have the original boiler downstairs, which just stopped working last year. Of course, a lot of money later, I put in a new boiler system for the whole building last year. The building was actually the original, it was either Cortland Savings or First National Bank of Cortland, but it was a bank originally, or maybe not originally, but at some point. In fact, our back office was the vault. After that, it became the Mohegan Market grocery store, which was there for quite a long time. There was some time in between there that I'm not sure if my father went in there right after Mohegan Market or if there was a gap there. I don't know what was there before Harold's, but I'm sure it's something I could probably find out.
And this is on the east side of Maine and Port Watson.
Yes, it's on the east side of Maine and Port Watson. It's a big old building, and it's
a beautiful building.
absolutely
You keep it really nice. It's nice to see it.
not easy to do though.
No, they're not. But must be a labor of love.
It is.
You care about it, obviously.
I do care. I do care about the building. The problem we're running into right now is if I want to continue to love that building is going to cost me a lot of money. So I have to decide whether I want to stay vested in that particular location. I'd like to, but as I said, it's a lot of money to do what I need to do. So.
Maybe a question about the future, what you
Oh,
think
yes.
the future might hold?
My future is I'll stay there I'll stay there and stay in business as long as I can. You know, we've dodged a lot of bullets over the years, and we've evolved to stay the way we are, to stay in business. I mean, a good business person can see the writing on the wall. Have I made errors? Absolutely made errors over the years. Did my father make errors? Absolutely. But you hope that they're not, you know, life-defying errors, that they don't shut you down, and they haven't. We've crawled out of every error we've ever made, knock on wood, and you know, you just have to realize that when time for one thing is up, you move on to something else. The good thing is, somehow, some way, we've always been in clothing, whether it's Army Navy clothing, to dress clothing, to t-shirts and sweatshirts. But the apparel business is what we've always known and done.
Do you see your children going into it?
I don't know. I really don't know. If they came to me and asked me, and it's funny because my mother did not want me to go into retail. My father did. My mother said there's easier ways to make a living. And I will tell my children the same thing. You know, with retail and even, you know, the custom logo, which is not necessarily retail, it is, but it's not. You're not necessarily waiting for people to come in and buy one shirt here and one shirt there. There are easier ways to make a living. The good thing about owning your own business is you can do what you want when you want. Where I don't have to punch a clock. If I want to go away for a week, I go away for a week. The bad thing is, if times are slow, you don't get paid. You know, you have other headaches. You know, if business is slow, you're the one sitting up at night thinking about it. But on the flip side, if business is good, you're doing well. Where if you work for someone, you're not necessarily, your life's not changing because business is well. When you own your own business, you control your own destiny. And you know, you don't have to worry about coming to work, and I hear it all the time. You come to work on Monday morning and you're told that you're done. You know, I will see it coming well before Monday morning. So.
As you speak, it makes me think a little bit about our other major industry here, farming. It's similar, that has peaks and valleys, and you're at the whim of the market somewhat.
Farming's changed a lot. The little mom and pop farms aren't in existence anymore. They're pretty much gotten to the point where farming, go big or go home. And
Like a lot of things.
you know, like a lot of things, right? You know, we compete not necessarily with our local competitors, but as much as with the internet competitors. The funny thing is people think it's cheaper on the internet. It's not. I mean, I love when people bring me in proposals they got off the internet, and I'll say, okay, so I got to beat this price? Well, sure. And it's great for me. It really is, because people think because it's on the internet it's cheaper. It's not. I mean, granted, there are times it is, but all in all, it's not. I mean, it happened to me the other day with a piece of furniture. I was going to buy a piece of furniture, and it was a little dress for my daughter's room, and it was $89. And it was $99 at the store. I was like, huh. But then there was another $79 shipping cost on it.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So I said, see, it's not, you know, it appeared to be cheaper, but it's not cheaper.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's something that unfortunately I wish more of our consumers realized, that keep it local.
Does the college have much of an impact on your business?
College has a very big impact on my business, especially when we got into the engraving business. When we started doing engraving, we're doing pretty much every department at SUNY Cortland now. There's probably a few we're not, but overall we're pretty much the biggest, you know, actually I think we're the only engraver right now in Cortland. So we do a lot of business with SUNY Cortland, a lot of business. Plus the apparel. I mean, yesterday they placed a big order. I mean, the college makes a difference, and anybody that complains about the college, I think they're completely crazy, because it brings a lot to the table. I mean, right now they're our biggest employer, and when you break it down, yes, they don't pay property taxes and those taxes, but every nickel that student spends gets taxed, and it's good for the community. And it might not be directly good for this person, but it's good in another way for another person. I had that argument years ago with the whole Cortica debacle, and I knew that something needed to be done. But my big argument was, and I went to a meeting, they said, well, why are you here? You're not a bar. And I said, well, because all the bars buy their shirts from me. I said, so they're not doing business, I'm not doing business. And they said, well, I guess that's a good point. And it is. I mean, it's, you know, if a bar owner's doing well, then he's going to spend money elsewhere. You know, if I'm doing well, I'm going to take my family out for dinner more often. I'm going to buy my wife or kids more things. I'm going to do work on my house. You know, we all, it's a cycle. And everybody needs, and that's what kills me about when people are always shopping online instead of looking locally first. Because the guy in Tennessee isn't helping our local economy. You're just taking the money away from here. And it's not good. So,
I think that's everything I can think of.